So the first couple of screenplays I wrote, it was really just kind of just I just got opened up Microsoft Word and just started doing it, and it was terrible. I remember showing it to someone and thinking that I did a really good job, and he read it, he set it down, and he said, "I got to tell you, this is terrible."
What is the thing or things that you've had to quit in order to become successful?
I certainly had to quit
Thinking it was too
the
big.
person that I was to get here. Being afraid that I was going to make mistakes. I quickly learned that the road to success is paved with failure.
Would you rather be able to breathe underwater or have the ability to fly just one time a week?
I think I would rather breathe underwater because I think so much of the ocean, what's on the ocean floor is not discovered. And there's so many things that we speculate like that's down there, like Atlantis, uh, you know, shipwrecks with lots of gold. So I'd be like a millionaire overnight.
Getting all that production money underwater.
Yeah.
Nice. Would you rather shoot a film with $3,000 or a teaser for a feature with the same amount of money?
uh, I think I would rather shoot a film for $3,000 because, that's what I'm desiring to do is to make a feature-length film. And even if it's $3,000 and it's just in one room with maybe two actors, I think that that is something that I would like to do because then I would have done it. And with it's just a teaser, it's just teasing up to something.
Yeah. Okay. Would you rather have an encounter with a bear or do a 3-day fast with a dry fast?
So no water, no nothing.
No water.
Uh, I'm gonna do the 3-day fast. I fasted for actually 22 days with water,
That's a
um,
lot.
but never without. I think you'd be dehydrated. You'd really so you wouldn't be doing well, but at least you would be alive. With the bear, I don't know. It's not a good proposition there.
Yeah, you'd be alive for sure. Your body produces water on its own. I believe it's like a liter a day. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me on that, but you'll be alive after 3 days of a dry fast. So our guest has an MA in film production from Eastern Illinois University. He is now an independent film producer. He has so far produced 9 short films, and he is now choosing one out of the 3 options that he has to produce as a feature film. Welcome, Jayson Johnson. Hey.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so happy to have you here. Jayson, I want to hear so much about your story, and I definitely want to get to the part where we talk about the short films, but I want to take us back to your early beginnings. Where was Jayson at around 5 years old?
Jason was at the west suburbs of Chicago. I grew up in a small town called Batavia, Illinois. And at 5 years old, I watched a lot of cartoons, a lot of TV. I was pretty much like a couch potato. While everyone was playing, I was just watching TV and just soaking up all this stuff until like my mom was like, "You have to go outside," no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But yeah, as a 5-year-old, I really loved to watch TV and to draw a lot and just to just kind of create stories in my head.
Yeah. Who were you closest to, your mom or your dad?
I'd say I'm a mama's boy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Would
absolutely.
she be your hero, or was there someone at that age that might have been your hero? Maybe someone from TV, or did you have a hero?
Uh, I mean, I looked up to my mom a lot. I don't know if she would be my hero. I think maybe I looked up to my brother a lot
Mm,
as someone that I aspired to be. So yeah, I'd probably say a combination of both of them.
yeah. How many siblings did you have?
I just have one older brother.
Oh, nice. How much older? How many years apart are you?
I think he's like 2.5 years older than I am.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's always a great gap,
Yeah.
because you're not so old that you can't play together at a certain point, but you're not so young that you're fighting all the time. And what was it like to uh, go from that into high school? Were you outgoing? Did you keep to yourself? What was your life like?
I actually had a lot of friends in high school. Yeah, I was kind of like a social butterfly of sorts. I found myself kind of integrating with a lot of different cliques. So, I had friends that were in athletics, friends that were into like, I guess you would call them nerds these days. Friends that were, really eclectic, friends that
Mhm.
were into bands. So it was just, I had a mix of a little bit of everyone. And yeah, I thought that was a really good mix for me.
And what do you think made that happen? Why do you think you had that ability? What made the difference between you and other kids that maybe keep to themselves or are in just one specific group?
I think people just kind of naturally like me. I don't know if that sounds egotistical or not, but so be it, I guess. But I think people just naturally like me, and I feel like I'm pretty easygoing. So uh, that's easy to break the ice when you're trying to meet somebody new.
Yeah.
But yeah, interestingly, I think I just feel like if there's someone that, is interested in me, then I'm interested in them just as a person. And I feel like, I'm a pretty easy guy to talk to.
Yeah. Nice. Did you like school? Like actually doing school work?
Nah, no, I didn't really know. Uh,
99.9% of my guests say no.
no, it's like, what's interesting in school, they don't really teach you the things that are necessary for you to be very successful in life. They teach you history and English and, math, and those things are really needed, but they don't teach you about the psychology of money. They don't teach you how to balance your bank checkbook. They don't teach you about um, soft skills that you would need to go out and be successful in the world. So um, a lot of the classes, I felt like it was kind of a waste of time, and I just kind of like did the bare minimum just to get by.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it would change the world if schools actually added to their curriculum all these skills that are needed as soon as you leave, as soon as supposedly you're well prepared for the world, but you have nothing, you don't know where to begin. It would be nice to have some guidance for what's coming after. And then you went to college, but what was your major at the beginning? Your major choice?
So this is kind of interesting. I don't know if anyone's ever told you this, but I went to college not knowing what I wanted to do, and when I arrived at Eastern Illinois University, there was kind of like this big ballroom of all of these college advisors, and they all had like you know business suits, and it just looked like something that I wasn't really interested in. But way in the back, there was a guy that had like just a white shirt and a red bow tie, and I went to that table and I said, whatever you are teaching, then I'm interested in it. I'm all in. I'm going to sign up for it. And that could have been like zoology, which, I would have never been interested in. But I just, I felt that calling. I went with it, and it happened to be speech communication.
It's very, very nice. And that's crazy. That's a crazy way to choose your path.
Yeah.
It's amazing because you know what? You listen to your conscience. And
Hmm.
isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Usually, you listen to your conscience and it will know the way, even when you're in fear. If you continue through that path, it'll be always the best path.
It's interesting. Whenever I've listened to my gut instinct, I've always been right. But
Yeah.
there's times where you second guess it and you're just like, well, that doesn't really rationally make any sense. Then, it's always been a disaster for me.
Yeah, I think for most of us, if not all of us. And so you started your career and you got an AA in that?
I actually got a BA in radio, TV, and film. They had a concentration. So that was for undergrad. And then I saw that there was a lot of students that were going to graduate school. And when I applied, the dean of the college laughed at me and said I would never graduate, or I could never get into grad school because my grades were too poor. So
Mm,
I asked him what I needed to do, and he said, you have to get straight A's from this point on out, which I did, and then I got into grad school. So I
nice.
actually have a MA in communication studies.
Yeah. How why was it that out of there you chose to do this? Was did film become a passion of yours through this journey?
I think I always was interested in film. Like I said, I grew up watching TV. I watched soap operas with my mom, and I would dissect the stories because they were so paint by the numbers. So I could almost predict what would happen. So I think that was like my earliest training for film, just because I understood, kind of the beats to what makes a good story. But in college, I think the changing moment for me was I had a roommate that needed he was doing a project and he needed an actor. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And that was kind of like the catalyzing moment where I was just like, you know what? I think I really want to do this.
Hmm. So after that, did you ever act again?
I did actually act again. I actually started my career as an actor once I got out here to California. I went on a lot of casting calls, and
Nice.
like clockwork, I'd go to these casting calls, and they would say, you, not you, Jason." And then they pick everybody else, and I'd be like, "Well, why didn't you pick me?" Uh, so with that, I said, "Well, I'm going to write something where I can act." Um, and then by the time I got to that point, I didn't want to act anymore. So it's
Yeah.
funny how that works out.
It's crazy. And everyone's journey is different. When you had to leave home, you left your family behind, you left everyone behind. I'm assuming they're still there. And or do you have family in California?
I actually have no family in California.
How was the transition of having everything there and family and people, and all of a sudden choosing, I'm going to go pursue my career to Los Angeles?
It was definitely tough at first because, you know, I actually didn't want to come to California. I just, you know, it was just one of those circumstances where it just kind of worked out that way. But um, yeah, I think as someone that was from the Midwest, I wanted to stay close to my family, and I ultimately thought that that would be my life. But fate had a different path for me, and I want to try to always listen to my gut, so that's what I ended up taking. But it hasn't been easy because you want to be close to your family, but uh, I think you ultimately have to follow your path, uh, regardless of how difficult it may be.
Yeah. So you went to your to all your castings and you felt left out, and you said, I'm going to show you all that I was born a star. And you started writing. How did you find the tools to write your first screenplay? You had taken I'm assuming, your basic screenplay writing at school?
Actually, no, I had never written anything before, and I was actually a terrible writer in college. I remember when I was graduating undergrad, there was a writing competency test. And I've actually never said this on podcast before, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. But I actually failed that test 2 times. My roommates passed it first time, easy peasy. I took it the first time, I failed. And then I said, oh, it's just a mulligan. So then I took it again and failed. And the third time, I had to pass it on this date. Otherwise, I wouldn't get admitted into grad school. So I got a tutor, and then we worked out some habitual things that I was doing wrong. And then, I passed on the third time. But yeah, I never had a lot of confidence growing up as a writer. it's just something that I had to practice and practice and practice to get better at. And I kind of write now out of necessity.
Yeah. The same thing happened to me exactly that way, but instead someone said, I can't introduce you to my writer friend because she's so busy. And my sister said, she was so much younger. This was years ago. And she said, but she looked at me and said, but you can write your own screenplay, right? And I was like, wait, me? I've never written a screenplay in my life. But you can do it, right? And I had no way of getting out of that one. I had to be like, yeah, sure, I can figure it out. And that's how the journey started. Crazy enough, it's those things that make you feel like you can't take it anymore, that really push you to have to do it on your own. And what was your experience like? Like, how did you figure out how to format your first screenplay?
Um, so the first couple of screenplays I wrote, it was really just kind of I just got opened up Microsoft Word and just started doing it. And it was terrible. I remember showing it to someone and thinking that I did a really good job. And he read it, he set it down, and he said, "I got to tell you, this is terrible." Uh, and it it was kind of like one of those moments where it was like you could either get mad or you could take it in and say, "Okay, I need to get better." So I took that as constructive criticism, and I started to read other screenplays. And then through that process, I learned about like writing software like Final Draft, or the other free ones like Celtics or Writer Duet that's online.
Did you ever find a mentor to write at the beginning, or was it just you until later on?
Um, I've worked at a TV station, and there were like all these really talented writers that they'd bring in, and I was part of two separate writing rooms.
Mm,
And I would read my pitches and then I would read theirs, and it would be like night and day. They use such colorful language, and just the way that they kind of set up a screen with their words was just really amazing. And although none of them really took me under their wing, I I did read what they had written, and then kind of took mental notes of how I could integrate that style into what I was writing.
yeah, I love that, Jason, because I think that so many people come to Los Angeles to make their dream happen, and they're waiting for that opportunity. And you're showing how perseverance was so important throughout your career. And although it never ends, you got to pursue and pursue and pursue until the end. That really is what makes it worth it. You growing as a person, you growing as a writer, and not taking a no for an answer and continuing to go even when they're saying you're bad. Hey, this is terrible. That's crazy. It's crazy how a person can have a goal so clear that you become so stubborn, determined, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna read the other screenplays and see how I can better mine. And how did you produce your first film?
So my first film, I produced it. Basically, I had a full-time job, and I was living by myself, and I I essentially turned my apartment into a production studio. So like my living room was where I made all these cardboard props. I made this science fiction film, and I made all the props, and did all the costumes and everything, and each day that kind of gave me momentum, so to speak, because I would see that I finished something. So yeah, from a production standpoint, I always just wanted to do at least one thing a day, and that helped me to kind of push things forward as that production progressed.
Yeah. And did you have any funds to put your first film together?
No, I want to say the first film I probably made that, all with friends, calling in favors, sneaking into locations, filming. My cameraman was a janitor at a college I was teaching at.
That's awesome.
So, very, very modest project. I didn't know what I was doing. The people that were acting didn't know what they were doing. But we were all excited because we were just making something, and
Yeah.
um, and it was fun. And so it was just like, and at the end of the day, even if none of this pans out, I still have my films, even after I'm long gone.
Yes. Yes. How did you pay for the camera? Where did you find a camera?
I found this camera on Amazon. It was a $35 mini DV camera. It
I,
was probably, at the time, it was probably 6 years out of date, because by this time we were switching from tape-based media to just all digital cameras. So this was still a tape that, I had to digitize and, import and then edit. But, that was a price point that I could afford. And um, yeah, I didn't know anything about the camera. Um,
yeah.
but, I just said, you know, the best way to learn is just to get out there and just do it. And you're going to learn something. And that's kind of been my MO, still to this day.
Yeah. How long did it take you to go from screenplay to finished product for the first time? And the reason why I'm asking you this is because going back to so many people are so talented here, but they're not taking advantage of their talent because they're waiting for the right budget, the right moment, the right locations, or the call from the casting director to showcase their work, or the call from, whoever it may be that will produce their film. And this is amazing so that they see that there's a possibility. If there's a dream, there's a passion there, they can do it as well. How long did it take you to finish this?
So I want to say we did this film, from start to finish. Let's say a year it took me, because I was just doing everything all at the same time. I would write, like, let's say 5 pages, and then we would film 3 of them, and then I would edit like 2 of those, and then I would go on TV, proclaiming that this was a great film. Um, so yeah, I was doing it all at once. And then someone would look at the footage and say, "Well, that doesn't make sense." So then we write something in so that it made sense, and then we would cast on the spot. So a lot of it was just kind of, we were just flying by the seat of our pants to try to make this film. And you know, at the end, we got it done. So it was kind of a big miracle in a way, because I did everything wrong. I didn't
Yeah,
know anything about pre-production, post production, or post-production. It's just, we were just doing something.
yeah, yeah, for sure. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you learned from that first project?
I think you just have to be willing to just go for it. You don't really get anywhere by just waiting. So if you have the desire, um, just go for it. There's really there's no one that's stopping you but yourself. And I think that, obviously you want to be educated as far as how you do things. Probably don't do it the way that I did it, because that's probably all the wrong way. But I think the thing that's made me successful is, um, I always push forward, regardless if I have the resources or not. Um, and that always leads to something else. And I think that's the secret of what's been successful for me so far.
Yeah. How long did that film end up being?
I want to say like 35 minutes. It's kind of a
Wow,
long film,
that's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot of work for a
yeah.
first film. Nice, very nice. And so you went from that to having 9 films done. How have things changed from then to now?
I've definitely learned a lot as I've gone on this journey of mine. So when I made that film, I knew absolutely nothing. I'd never worked at a film production studio or anything. And since then, I've started working at like different professional TV studios. Um, I worked for Amazon. I worked for Netflix and things like that. So you get to work with other directors that are doing this at a high level. So I would definitely say that my experience has increased and just my overall knowledge about filmmaking has increased. And I think anytime you do something over and over and over again, you're going to get better. So that's kind of been my process.
Yeah. Do you have people that have mentored you throughout since then to now?
Actually, no. I've never had a mentor, and I kind of feel gypped off by that because there's so many people that have had mentors that they kind of guide them along, and they say that you should do this, you should do that. But I've always just I've always been in a situation where I've embraced trial and error, and I'll try something, and if it works, then I'll continue to do it until that stops, and then I'm just thinking of what else can I do. So I'm always asking myself, what if, or what can be, and that's kind of been my experience as a filmmaker.
Yeah. Where do you get your inspiration from?
Um, I I want to win an Academy Award. Actually, let me rephrase that. I'm going to win an Academy Award. Um, so I I get a lot of inspiration from someone that wasn't born in kind of the Hollywood system, didn't really have any connection, but still was successful. Because I do believe that it all starts with your mind, um, and if you believe it, then you can have it, and that's kind of been my driving force.
Yeah, most definitely. What about how do you get your stories? How do you find your ideas for your stories?
Um, a lot of different ways. Maybe some of it comes from like TV shows. Like when I first got my first idea, I remember this show that even predated me. It was called Buck Rogers. So I said, wouldn't that be interesting if they made like a black exploitation of it, and we just called it Black Rogers. Uh, so it comes from all different places. Video games. I used to play a lot of video games, so I get a lot of ideas from that. But um, I also get a lot of ideas from like reading like news clippings. Like one of the stories that I'm writing now is it's about a guy that robbed banks and then he got away on a skateboard. So I thought that that's really interesting. I've never seen that before. So
That's
let's
extremely interesting.
yeah. So that led me to writing this, finding this guy, writing him in prison, and then I asked him about his story. And he his story wasn't really that interesting, but the general idea was there. So I kind of cultivated a story around just the concept of the idea, and I
Yeah,
think I have something pretty original.
that's amazing. And nowadays, because everything has changed and you have evolved as a creator, what is your writing process? Now you have three ideas for feature films. Are all three developed? Is there one that you're barely working on? Where are you at right now?
So one, so the skateboard bandit film, Grip Tape, is almost done. I was actually putting some of the finishing touches on that. I think I have maybe 5 or 6 more pages to write, and then that's the first draft is completely done. But the first two projects, I am working with a producer that was a co-founder of the Slam Dance Film Festival, and we're kind of really polishing it up, getting it ready for packaging, so that we can approach distributors and see if they're interested in these projects. So that's the step where I am with these first two projects.
Yeah, and now that what is your writing process? Do you find your characters first, or is it the story? Do you do an outline? Do you not?
I probably write a lot differently than a lot of people. I will just I'll just start writing, and I have no idea what I'm writing or what I'm writing about. Um, I'll have like an idea of an idea, let's say that, and around that idea of an idea, it kind of whittles down to the point where it becomes a comprehensive story. So this first film that I wrote, Counterfeit Cabernet, I had an idea that 30% of wine that we consume is counterfeit. And from that, uh, turned into a wine vintner gets in way over his head with underground gambling. And a gangster says, if you don't pay off your debt, then I'm going to take you and your family out. So he makes counterfeit wine to kind of pay off the tab. And then in that story, a whole bunch of like unsavory characters kind of float to the surface until, everything resolves itself.
Hmm.
So so that's kind of how I write. I just really start a broad spectrum of what could be, and then just kind of whittles down until it's something that is doable.
I'm loving your names. The names of all your films are different. I like it. They have some depth. What is your way of packaging when you say we're packaging it to, show it to different investors or production companies? What is it that you do?
Um, so I don't know anything about packaging, so I'm learning. But as far as I know, it's writing a pitch deck and making sure that that covers all the bases. You want to tell a general synopsis of the story with a great log line, um, and then you want to integrate some photos of what the look and feel of the film could be like. Um, and then just kind of make your story stand out, which I don't think is really hard these days because I think Hollywood keeps doing remakes and uh, superhero flicks. So I think something that is original has a good chance of getting produced.
Yeah, and for some people, I don't know if you've done this yourself. Maybe you have someone that knows a little more about technology and graphics. But for anyone else that's listening, that's trying to put a pitch deck together, you can always reach out to people on Fiverr. Once you have all the content, they can put a nicely done pitch deck for you, since they have a lot of graphic designers. It just makes it cheap and easy.
Hmm.
Um, Go ahead.
I was gonna say when I was developing my pitch deck, I went to like other filmmakers that were a little bit ahead of where I was at. And I'm sure that any filmmaker has someone that there is maybe a couple of steps ahead of their career. So use that to your advantage instead of saying, oh, they're ahead of me. uh, Look at their pitch decks and then see what was successful for them, and then make it your own. There's they always say stealing is the best flattery when it comes to art. So don't be afraid to uh, take someone's concept and then add on to it and make it your own. There's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with that.
yeah, that's a great advice, Jason. If there's a producer, writer, someone that wants to put their project together and put it out there, package it, and show it, what has been your way to network to open those doors so that you can show those people that might be on the other side to help you produce your film?
So yeah, that's a great question. I try to attend like these webinars where you know they're like break into the film industry, things of that nature. And let's say that there's 30 people that attend this event, and then they always say make sure that you network with all these people, and then most people never do. And it's just like, so these are 30 people that you can network with that may have just that tiny bit of information that you need to kind of get to that next level. So yeah, I always make sure that I reach out to everyone. I say hi. I send my portfolio over. Say I would love to collaborate with you if it makes sense. And that's kind of worked out for me, because it is really all of who you know, not what you know.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about shooting on an iPhone? Or have you shot on an iPhone?
Yes, I have shot on iPhone. I remember I did a promo for the Cal EPA, and it was like it wasn't a lot of money, and um, but it was the opportunity to kind of be, uh, you know, represented by a big organization. So we took the budget. I think I wrote the promo in like 30 minutes. I found a guy that I was working with, and we shot this thing in like an hour. And then like an hour later, I had edited it, and then I sent it in to them, and they said, "Wow, oh my God, this is great." So I think the iPhone is really good for what it is, and you could really make some cool art. But it really all comes down to the story. So it doesn't. I don't think the camera makes a huge difference. Um, but I think the story makes all of the difference.
They have a lot of festivals nowadays too that are iPhone oriented. The only thing that I've came to find out is that they have the iPhone quality has less pixels, so whenever you try to project it on a big screen, it won't come out as good as even the cheapest 4K camera. But if you're trying to showcase it on places like YouTube or places where you're not going to have a bigger screen, or a theater, then we should be good to go.
Yeah, I I have an older iPhone. I think mine is like a 12 or something. But I wonder, like the 14 Max Pro, I wonder, is that enough resolution to broadcast on a?
The 15, I think, is still very low,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
but that is if you want to put it to show in a theater.
Okay.
However, the image, if you're trying to put a short film together for YouTube or whatever, it comes out beautiful, and you could still have your short film. We would just have to process it to blow it up if you want to show it in a theater. So I would think that would be the expense, but it's still really nice quality image.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So there's
Yeah.
always ways if people want to put projects together, because sometimes you just want to tell a story. You might as well go ahead and tell it instead of waiting for the funds to be available.
Yeah, that's tough for a filmmaker because like it or not, you have to have money to make a film. And I meet a lot of people that aren't in film, and they're just like, well, why don't you just make it with your iPhone? Why don't you just make it with why don't you just grab actors off the street? And I think that their heart is in the right place, but I don't think that they understand that you you have to have professionals that are ultimately moving your project forward, because as a director, um, it ultimately falls on your head. So if something is terrible, they're going to say Jayson Johnson did that, and then you're marred. So yeah, uh, having money is definitely important, but there has to be a balance.
Yeah. Nowadays, what is the budget you would say would be the minimum to produce a short film, with two locations?
um I've made short films for $50. um I'd say, when was that? I want to say in 2019, I made a film for $50, because I was tired of waiting around, looking for the money, and I had $50. I had a couple actors I'd worked with that liked the story that I'd written, and there's like this island near where I live at that has this interesting statue on it. So we just kind of reversed engineered everything around that location, and we made it for $50. So it's interesting how this all kind of came to fruition. And, even someone showed up with pizza that, I didn't know how I was going to feed the crew. And this guy that I worked with just so happened to be in the area. And he said, "Hey, I heard you were making a film right now. Are you guys hungry? Because I have this extra pizza." Uh,
Mm.
and he stopped by and, we had pizza. So I think the big thing is just to start and then, let the universe kind of figure it out from there.
Yeah, and this that you're saying is very powerful because a lot of times we think waiting is the best way, but we don't understand that a lot of creators also want to play, also want to collaborate. If your story is good, a lot of people will be like, okay, well, you don't have enough to pay me, but maybe next time you can pay me, or I believe in what you're doing, so I know you're gonna succeed and you can pay me later. Whatever may be the case, but it happens a lot to where creators that have the passion for it just want to put projects together. I've seen that throughout the pandemic a lot, where people were just like not working, and people that had the experience were like, okay, well, we'll lend you a hand and help you put your project together. It's just a matter of putting yourself out there, like you said, and allow the universe to do its work.
Yeah, another thing that's interesting because people may say, well, who edited your project? I actually found my editor through a old college professor that recommended someone that was just complaining that they didn't have anything to edit. So I said, I have a project that they can edit and they can put it on their reel. They can take a look at the footage, and if they like it, then you know, um, by all means. And she just so happened to be like this fantastic editor that worked for ABC, and so I got this ABC editor to edit my project, and I didn't have to pay anything.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty about this industry is that most people do it for the passion of it. So you can really put projects together if they like it. If people like the story, that's it. They're hooked. The thing is, I always say, listen, if you have the funds to pay, pay. Like you should pay because people deserve to be paid. But if you don't wait to get your project done. Don't be like 5 years later, I'm still collecting and trying to see if I can put some money together to put my film out there. Because when the story comes to you, they're meant to be told. So you have to take that leap of faith. Do you
Absolutely.
have a daily ritual with your writing?
I don't. Like right now, I'm really motivated to write. I typically write every day anyway. I'm a grant writer for
Yeah.
my day job. So it can be hard after you write like 8 hours a day and now you have to write some more creatively. You're just kind
Yeah.
of wiped out. But I get like these pockets of motivation where it's just like I'm going to, write in the time that I'm motivated because I don't know when that time is going to come up again. So after I finish Grip Tape, I have another idea for a film called Dopamine Hit, and I'm going to, just start writing that. And if I get 20, 30 pages written in a weekend, then that would be a good start.
Yeah. How long are your rewrites? Like how many times do you usually rewrite?
Um, I try to get to the gold draft. I think that is 5 or 6 times.
Hmm.
Um, so what I typically do is I'll do my first draft, which is just utter garbage, and then I'll highlight all the good parts, X out all the stuff that doesn't work, and then I will write something that to me is presentable, which becomes the blue draft. Then I'll check all the dialogue and all the uh, exposition to make sure that it makes sense. Try to whittle down characters that are unnecessary, and then that leads me to the pink draft. And then I will at this point I'll write it again, and then I'll hand it off to someone to say, "Let me get your opinion on it." Um, and then depending on their advice, then I go ahead and make more corrections, and then ultimately that will get me to the gold draft. Um, and that's typically when I feel like it's almost ready.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, and that's another good point. Always remember, guys, that the first thing that you write most likely is not it. 99% of the time
No,
it's not it.
yeah,
So, you know, like Jason, he does 6 rewrites, 5, 6. Some people do 20, depending on the kind of writer you are, but there are always rewrites, which is great to know, because you're like, I finished, I'm done with the first draft, and it's like, no, that's not even close.
yeah,
But your
it's
but your characters develop themselves as every draft continues to evolve, and isn't it so nice to see how, like, you started from something that could have been a little bit of the story, and then sometimes, has it ever happened to you where you end up with a completely different story than the one you began with? Or
oh,
usually,
absolutely, yeah. I would say in almost all my film projects, there's a story that I write, the story that we direct, and then the story that's edited.
yeah,
And I'd say by the end of it, I have probably 60 to 70%, if I'm lucky, the original idea. And
yeah,
and that's not always bad. Sometimes it's a lot better.
for sure, for sure. And also allow it to be what it has to be, allowing it to be like, if it develops into it being 50% of the story that you intended to tell, it's okay. Most likely it's a better idea now than it was before. So it's all good.
Yeah. I think for me, it's all about getting the right people on your project, um, having a similar mindset as far as, the story that you want to tell, and then letting go. And I know that's really hard for creators to just let go of like their baby, but uh, I think you have to get to a place where uh, you bring it up as far as you can, and then you say, "This is your editor now. This they're going to nurture you to this point on." And you just have to have trust that it's going to be the best it can possibly be.
Yeah. Did you direct every film that you wrote?
No, there's one film that I wrote, and then I handed it off to a director that I thought was in the same mindset that I was. But this was another time that I kind of went against my gut feeling. I don't know why I wrote something and then handed it off to someone. Actually, I do know why. I was like, I didn't think that I was qualified to direct this at this point, even though I had directed a couple of no budget projects. I just thought that there's actual filmmakers here, and I felt like a little bit insecure about myself, and I let this guy direct it, and the project was not anywhere near what I thought it could be. So I learned that lesson, and I'm glad that I learned that lesson. But now I have a lot of confidence in myself as a director.
Yeah, it gives you the certainty, but I bet you were suffering through the process.
Oh yeah, yeah, because it was just like, at that point I hadn't learned to let go, and it was just like, what are you doing? You're messing up the whole project, and it's just like, I'm wearing, it's kind of like the producer and director, at war with each other, and but yeah, it's just like that was like a great learning experience, but I'll never do that again.
I bet. How do you know when people are the right people to be part of your team,
Um,
including actors?
yeah. That's a good question because, I've worked with some really great actors, and then I've worked with some like really egotistical actors. Um, I think you have to have a good sit down and just maybe even share a meal with them, and then, kind of just kind of get an idea where their headspace is at. Um, I I once heard that the two best ways to get an idea of someone is to have a meal with them, or to work on a project together. And with actors, that's a little bit difficult because they are, their whole profession is to pretend to be a different character. So I guess they could put the mask on, but uh, I think ultimately you just want to make sure that your values align, and just that they see the story the same way that you do, and that ultimately you can get along, and if you can get along and coexist, then I think magic can happen.
Yeah, from my experience, I feel that there's also that voice of your conscience that says, because it's happened where I've hired someone and I was like, but I knew I shouldn't have, but sometimes you don't listen to that voice. So listening to your intuition, I would definitely recommend when it comes to hiring people in any area, in any kind of business.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Jason, what is one thing or a couple of things that you've had to quit in order to become successful?
Great question. I would say I've had to learn to alter my self-talk. And that's really understated because, a lot of times our 3D reality will show us something that is not desirable. Like, let's say, um, like now, I finished these projects. I'm working with this producer, and on the horizon there doesn't seem to be a path forward. So I could easily get into the mindset, well, it's not going to happen. It's going to, at least take 10 years. And what you tell yourself is so important, because it's going to either determine your success or your failure. So I had to stop uh, telling myself uh, undesirable stories. I had to successfully quit being negative, and having a positive outlook of only the things that I want, only the things that are wonderful, and the things that ultimately are things that make me happy.
Yeah.
So that's been huge for me.
Yeah, and I think that's everyone's beginning. And that voice never really stops. It's just, I always tell this story, but and it's because I like it. Someday someone said, when I'm fearful of things and you hear that voice, what I say is, listen, fear, I'm gonna do it with or without you. So if you want to come with me, let's go. But I'm going. So
Yeah,
it's the same thing. It's like, okay, you hear it, but you're like, this. What's more important? But that's amazing. That's definitely amazing. Self talk is huge. So
yeah. I've learned that we're essentially in two states, and throughout our life, we are in a primal state or a powerful state. And your primal state is anything that makes you fearful, scared, anxiety, angry, anything that doesn't make you feel good. That's your primal state. Your powerful state is anything that makes you feel good inside. So that could be creating, self-love, feeling like anything is possible. So those are the states that you want to stay in. So, always try to stay in your powerful state throughout the day, even if you have to tell yourself you're the number one filmmaker in the world. I always do that to myself. I'm just like, I'm the number one filmmaker in the world. And because I am. And,
yeah,
it's just like, and that makes me feel good.
yeah,
And it doesn't matter if it's not true, because your subconscious doesn't know. So
yeah,
why not say it?
for sure, for sure. That attracts more of that to your life.
Hmm.
And where can people find you? Where can they watch your films? Are they available anywhere?
Yeah, so I do have a YouTube channel, and you could easily find me now. You can Google me. My first name is spelled Jayson, last name Johnson. You can also do a search for me on Strike Five Films, uh, STRIKEFIVE films, and I'm sure my information will pop up there, and you could click my social media links, especially my YouTube, watch my films. I even sell merchandise, so come out to the Strike Five Film store and get some of the streetwear that we produce.
Support, guys. Support filmmakers that are making
Yeah.
it happen. Let's go. It's definitely going to happen for you, Jayson. Continue to succeed. Please do not give up, because most people that make it is not because they're the most talented, but the ones that are not willing to give up. So talent plus willingness to continue moving forward will make it happen. Thank you
I
so very much.
You got it. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Likewise, thank you so much for your time, the golden nuggets, the inspiration that people will get from this. And thank you guys for watching another episode of Successful Quitters. I am Sara Nunez Bee, your host, and I will see you on the next one.